And listen, big news. Flynn was framed, and that's what the newly released documents all show. Lieutenant General Michael Flynn was framed, according to newly released FBI documents. Sidney Powell, his attorney, has filed for dismissal of all charges. It clearly shows they were trying to frame the guy. Why did they go after Flynn first? Well, Flynn was the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and he was going to be the national security advisor for Donald Trump. What's the Defense Intelligence Agency? Well, it's the big intelligence agency at the Pentagon, at the Department of Defense. And he knew all about Clapper, director of National Intelligence, DNI, and the head of the CIA at the time, John Brennan, and Jim Comey and all the counterintelligence, counterterrorism people under the FBI. And he knew where all the bodies were buried and knew that there was massive abuse of the system, of the surveillance system and the intel agencies being used as a weapon. He knew it. And so Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell, was on. She actually, there was another set of attorneys. She came in and said, don't admit to all this stuff. This is, I'm going to go after him for prosecutorial abuse. She wrote a book about the top guy, Weissman, about all the prosecutorial abuse that he's had at the Justice Department, the DOJ. And she said, I think these guys abused you. And all she had to do was collect the documents. Now, Christopher Wray, the now FBI director, held up a lot of documents. Acting like a deep state shill he is. But anyway, they finally got him. Flynn defense lawyer Sidney Powell on Fox on Thursday talked about the first interview by the FBI with her client at the White House. Just a few days in the early stages, Jim Comey bragged about sending people over. That he wouldn't have tried that under Bush administration or Obama. But, with the Trump administration, he went ahead and did it. Of course, they didn't Mirandize him and tell him he was a target of an investigation. And so Powell goes on and says, well, they wanted to keep him relaxed and unguarded because in case their plan to get him out of there didn't work and he would wound up being the national security advisor to the new administration the entire time, there would be hell to pay. Why would there be hell to pay? Because he knew all about the ropes and the CIA, the NSA, Clapper, Comey, Brennan. He knew all the abuses, knew what was going on. Wait, it gets better. Hold on. So then she says, so there'd be hell to play. Flynn, already knew and was trying to audit all the intel agencies for their egregious abuses. Well, let that sink in, folks. They were going to knock him out of the box because they already knew and was trying to audit all the intel agencies for their egregious abuses. Did it say anywhere that she talked about Operation Hammer? Remember that hoax? That Kevin Shipp came on and destroyed Hammer, with the 47 hard drives, not, and the 600 million pages of stuff nefariously collected in an alternate surveillance system, not, fake, fraud. And Janda, Benny, and Weeby all pushed this fraud for years, fraud. It was like Kevin Shipp said, I think they needed an alternative story. I think they needed a super secret surveillance system because, Flynn already knew and was trying to audit all the intel agencies for their egregious abuses. Why would you invent some crazy hoax? Only to get people off the trail because you were already using the best surveillance system in the world, the National Security Agency, the NSA. And you were abusing the daylights out of it. And nobody cared because, they were going to cheat Hillary in. Trump won. And Flynn was going to be his national security advisor. There would be hell to pay, kind of like what's happening now. I'm going back on my thing. For the longest time, I really got depressed. I always thought that Trump had to take these guys out because if he didn't, his family would be bankrupted, jail, or died. And it's starting to look like it's happening. So I'm hopeful that justice is going to be done. And it looks like people are flipping because, a lot of these people involved are in their late 50s, 60s. They get a 10, 15-year sentence when you're 60, 62, 65 years old. that's like a life sentence. You're 60 something years old and you get 15, 20 years. That's like 50 or 60 years in prison for a 20-year-old. That's most of your rest of your life, if not all of it. So they're flipping. Former FBI General Counsel James Baker has flipped. Durham is building a conspiracy case on all those who lied to the court. We're talking about the FISA court. Remember that with the, that the mainstream media won't. Let's see. Trump was a Russian asset. That's a huge lie, but they wanted you to believe that lie. And Spygate is a hoax. No, just the opposite. Trump was not a Russian spy. That's been totally proven. And Spygate is anything but a hoax. It's a real thing, and it's all coming to light. And so here we have former U.S. Attorney Joe DeGenova, hotshot prosecuting attorney. He was in Washington. He's the man. Joe DeGenova says Durham is building a conspiracy case, and anyone who lied to the court, this is the FISA court, will be indicted for obstruction of justice charges. I mean, they took a dossier that was paid for by Hillary Clinton, and supposedly she knew about it. She paid for it. It was $12-something million. And they took it to a FISA court so they could spy, so they could use it as documentation, so they could spy on everything Trump. Wow. What in the world would make people commit one felony, one seditious act, one treason after another? What were they having to cover up for? I don't know yet. I mean, could it be things like, Biden's son getting $1.5 billion from China? Could it be like the big kickback scheme, which is what the State Department turned into in places like Ukraine? We have $1 billion. We'll give it to you. Then you kick it back to us, most of it. So I'm really hopeful that people are going to go to jail. I mean, this stuff was off the charts crazy. I mean, they covered up Hillary Clinton. She had I've said this a million times. She had the treasonous acts of the Clintons. Hillary and her global charity fraud. Private server, unprotected, to cover up the fact she was taking treasonous bribes to her global charity fraud. And then on the other side, we have the bloom is off the rose in China, and this has big geopolitical concerns, but also big financial concerns as well. And this is Donald Trump confirms high degree of confidence that COVID-19 originated in Wuhan lab. And here's his quote. I think, this is Donald Trump. Donald Trump says, I think WHO should be ashamed of themselves because they were like the public relations agency for China. They shouldn't be making excuses when people make horrible mistakes, especially mistakes that are causing hundreds of thousands of people around the world to die. This is what Donald Trump says. Boy, that punches a hole in the whole PR campaign for China. I mean, listen, this has been, as I've told you before, a disaster PR-wise for China. Do you think businesses are going to be flocking towards China? Yeah, I don't think so. It's, unbelievable. And it gets worse. Trump says, here's an article from Zero Hedge. Truce is over. Trump is considering ways to punish China, convinced Beijing will do anything to make him lose re-election. And he's intimating that this Wuhan thing was a big hoax that they meant for it to get out of control. I mean, listen, here is an overarching fact, okay? Is it a bioweapon? Looks like it came from a lab, according to our president, but it really doesn't make any difference. I mean, they knew they had a problem. It doesn't make a difference, but China knew it had a problem in Wuhan, which is a city of 8 or 10 million people. It's a engineering marvel. It's not like a few shacks around a few rice paddies. This is some city. This is as big as Chicago or LA or New York. This is huge. And they shut Wuhan, travel out of Wuhan down by roads and by air in China domestically. Shut it down. But if you want to fly to Italy or the United States or anywhere else, go ahead. I mean, that's a total fact that happened. And look what happened. China has a big concern over there in Italy and manufacturing concern, and Italy got creamed with this virus. And Trump early on, bam, 10 days into it, shut down travel from China. And then, it looks like New York got people who were traveling from Europe, and after that, he shut that down. That's why it got bad in New York. But we could have all just used hydroxychloroquine early on and some zinc and a Z-Pack, and yet they're still covering that over for this new wonder drug that can, help you get well 3 days faster from 14 to 11 days. I mean, just because they're not talking about the miracle drug, which I've talked about, and I want you to hear about, and the reason why I am telling you this is because it works. It's been proven to work. It's not a hoax. There's much scientific evidence, about this. Do we need a double-blind study? Well, while people are dying, not right now. We need to know if it works or not, and it does. Raoul Didier, the French MD and PhD in microbiology, one of the top infectious disease doctors in the world, has over 1,000 patients that he has cured. Well, 1,000 patients in a study. He has a 98.7 cure rate when used early. So, this whole Wuhan thing is gone on long enough, and I really worry about the constitutional justification for you saying you can't work, you have to stay in house arrest in your house, and I'm the governor of whatever state, and I get paid, and it's emergency, we're going to keep you safe. Hey, you know what? I'll decide what I need to do to be safe. But meanwhile, we've caused basically the beginning of the Great Depression. I kid you not. All the metrics are pointing towards a depression bigger than the Great Depression. That's what I want to warn you about. Even though stocks are vaulting and things are going up and it looks like a party and everybody's happy that we're going to start opening up, but boy, the deep state, the evil weasels are really stopping that. You have revolts to the lockdowns are coming, or if not, they're already here. California is closing parks and beaches, but only in the Republican GOP Orange County. Michigan legislature stops Governor Whitmer, which president calls half-wit, Governor half-wit, for extending the lockdown open. They're going to be open past May, past May 1st. You wanted another 28 days. I don't know how that's going to go. She's just going to sign another executive order. I think they're going to take her to court and go after the constitutionality of that. You can't stop people from making a living and hold them prisoners in their home because, we just want to make them safe. And then we have armed protesters were in the Capitol, and it was peaceful in Michigan. Gaston County, North Carolina, told the governor here, Roy Baby Killing Cooper, and protector of all illegal alien criminals, because he vetoed bills that would stop, full-term baby killing abortions and force sheriffs to comply with waivers, from ICE. But Gaston County says, that's it, we're opening. We're going to do things safe. We're opening. Other states, Ohio, Georgia, South Carolina, Missouri, Oklahoma, Ohio, also opening or opening soon. I think Missouri is going to try to open up beginning on May 4th. But anyway, people are getting sick of this. They're blowing up the totals on the deaths. The CDC has asked doctors to even, without evidence, you can just mark it down as a COVID death. And then we have this little story out of Project Veritas in New York City in the 5 boroughs. Funeral directors in COVID-19 epicenter, that's New York, doubt legitimacy of death attributed to pandemic fear. Numbers are, quote, padded. This is according to Project Veritas. They do great work. They're looking. They talked to a bunch of funeral home directors. Here's one of them that says, they're looking for federal funding, and the more they put COVID on the death certificate, the more they can ask from the federal funds. And so that's just getting going out there. The fraud and abuse of this whole idea that, everybody has COVID. Why didn't Governor Cuomo early on give people hydroxychloroquine and zinc and a Z-Pack? Why did he restrict it only coming to a hospital? Because if they can get a ventilator down your throat, they get $37,000. If they can get you in a hospital, they get $13,000. You can't have people looking after themselves and go to a general practitioner and go, hey, let's try this hydroxychloroquine. I hear it has great results over in France and many other studies, incidentally, where it does work when it's used early. And there's little downside. It's another lie. Heart problems and other things. No. Not according to one of the top lupus and rheumatoid arthritis doctors in Los Angeles, who gives it to 2,000 patients, who says, the downside risk is nil for a 6 to 10 day dosing. Nil. But here's Andrew Cuomo in the news, and it says New York City is shutting down its subway system each day from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. to increase cleaning of train stations during the coronavirus crisis. As I told you, he's worried about, people getting close to each other, and he's got people running around nasty, filthy subways that he's not cleaning or closing down, incidentally, or the cabs or the buses, right? He's just letting them just filthy, nasty. And so then we have subway trains which have been disinfected at least once every 72 hours and will now be cleaned every 24 hours. This after, 6 weeks of this lockdown, he's decided that maybe they need to clean up some public transportation. Governor Cuomo, yes. Oh, you've done such a fantastic job. Totally unprepared, totally bungled, totally missed on how many hospital beds and how many ventilators. They sent him all kinds of stuff, including a 1,000-bed ship that he didn't use. And so, listen, they say they like to have Cuomo run for president. Wow. He's not going to be able to run on his response to this whole Wuhan virus deal. Not going to be able to do it. I want to talk a little bit about the economy and the damage already done. Big time damage has been done to the economy. As I told you last week, 50%, more than 50% of the gasoline demand has been knocked out of the equation. Listen, as demand gets knocked out, supply is going to be knocked out, and jobs to produce that supply is going to be knocked out. See, that's the other big shoe to drop, is we're going to bring it back, but how much demand is going to be there? How much demand are we going to get back? Are we going to get back all of it? I don't know. No. Just use the gasoline as a gross number. 50% of the demand knocked out. Are we going to get 25% of that and still have 25% of the demand knocked out? What's that going to do to zombie companies I've been telling you about that? On the margin, they're just barely making it. They're just turning over cheap money and barely making it. 1 out of 8 companies. Are they going to be able to make it? And then you look at pending home sales plummet by record in March. And it's going to be worse in April. And Hertz bankruptcy imminent. There's many other bankruptcies, but Hertz bankruptcy imminent after massive layoffs and missed lease payment. A quarter of all S&P companies have pulled their outlook so far. Listen, think on that now. Let that sink in. It's so bad that 25% of companies said, we don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea. Because they don't want to say, well, we estimate we'll be 10% down or 15% down or 20% down or 50% down. Or most of these companies we're just not going to give you the bad news yet. They're going to be down, except for companies like Amazon and Walmart. There's a few bright spots, but mostly dark spots, where the demand is not going to come back, at least not all the way. And then we have Shale Oil cutting production 25%. I thought that was weird. Oh, and by the way, buried in all the data, our GDP shrunk almost 5%, quarter over quarter. First quarter to this year to the last first quarter of last, 4.8% GDP shrunk. And that's January, February, March. And I think halfway through the month, they shutdown started, right? Sometime in there. Shale Oil Company cutting 25% of the production. Now, there you are. There's a metric. Why did they pick 25%? We lost 50% of the gasoline and, I guess, diesel demand and a lot of other things, about 50%. And they're going to cut 25%. So are they thinking they're going to come back to a world where oil usage and demand is down 25%, not 50%? I mean, the jobs lost. The jobs lost is stunning. We had another 3.8 million people file for unemployment. Total unemployment in the last 6 weeks is near 30 million people. And millions more might not be showing up yet in the numbers because the system is hitting overcapacity and some can't have yet to file. They just can't file. I didn't get that right there. Some just can't file. And so that makes sense. But, another almost 4 million people file for unemployment. Listen, this extra extended benefits and the extra $600 and the stimulus checks, that's that's not that much. I mean, you want a job that you can count on for the next year, 2, 3, 5, whatever. And there's a lot of companies, who knows if they're going to come back. Dick's Sporting Goods, are they coming back? Penny's, are they coming back? Sears, is that coming back? A lot of these restaurants, are they coming back? I was going around where I live in some of the malls, and I mean, it's just like for lease, uh, dark, uh, got some product in there. Are they going to open up and give it a shot for a month and go, boom, I'm done? The demand's not there. I mean, we're going to have an economy of liquor stores and grocery stores and gas stations. That's going to be our whole total shopping economy. So Shale Oil was interesting. They cut production by 25%, and I'm thinking that maybe they think we're going to be down 25% in terms of demand for oil. And is that the demand that's going to be destroyed? Rule of thumb, 25% down after everything opens up. I don't know. And then we have, because of all this, Pelosi's trying to get $1 trillion given to the state and local government, really pensions, $1 trillion, and because all the tax receipts, the confiscation is just tanked. People aren't getting sales tax, or they're not getting, state income tax. They're not getting all kinds of taxes and things to run the government. And now Pelosi wants to give states, and they're not funding their pension funds, that they're still having to pay out. Those people who are on pension funds are still getting paid. And the tax revenues to replenish that is sinking, getting sucked out of it. And then you have McConnell, who's at it again, saying, not interested in borrowing money from future generations to bail out states for bad decisions. He's talking about these lavish pensions and all this debt that they have, incurred. And it's mostly blue states, although there are some red states that aren't doing very well either. And it's some massive tax increases for public union pensions, or massive cuts to the benefits payments, or both. Are we going to get taxes and cuts? I don't know. Public employee pensions, $5 trillion underfunded. I had Alex Newman on talking about that. And it's stunning. It's an unbelievable amount. I took a lot of grief from people. Some people were saying that, where there's a moral obligation. I didn't make that obligation. The Teamsters, remember the Teamsters? The Teamsters lost 50%, roughly, their pensions. Nobody wrote in to save them and made them whole. They took a pie in the face. There's been plenty of people where companies have gone under, and it hits the PBJC, and instead of getting nothing, they get 25 cents on the dollar, maybe 40 cents on the dollar, or they don't get paid whole. They get something. I mean, this is a $5 trillion hole on top of all the other holes. And yes, I know they stole 21 trillion, or excuse me, it's missing. But I don't think we're ever going to get that back. I hope we do. We can't get anybody to talk about it. Except for Dr. Mark Skidmore and Catherine Austin Fitz and all the money managers. I always bring it up off camera. I said, that 21 trillion is a real number. And they're just like, they made it a national security issue. You understand why I'm telling you to buy real stuff under your direct control? I did have many people tell me, I've been listening to you for years, and what I offered wasn't sexy. I didn't have a new way to buy something, or you can make a ton of money in the stock market, or have this trade. I said, pay off your house, pay off your car, get resilient, get tough. Simple, me owning my stuff, or you owning your stuff. Simple is strong. Complicated and leverage is weak. And so that's what I told people. And look at the car sales. Here is a chart for car sales, and it goes back to let me get it to focus. If I do this, it'll focus. All right, come on. There you go. It goes back to there you go, 2007. So you remember the last big suck down, 2007? 2007, 2008, car sales went down. We had the no money down loans. Remember that? And then, we had things going and juking and all of it. And then we get here to COVIDville, and bam! Are you looking at where this is heading? It's worse. It's worse than it was before. That's where they're saying it's going to go. They're going to go, and then what this is units sold. So this is, 16.5, 17 million units. They're estimating we're here now, so we have a big hit, and they're estimating to go down to what's below 8 million units, cut in half. The car sales are going to be cut in half. I mean, how much demand is there going to be for a brand new Chevy, which are beautiful, $55,000, $60,000 truck? How much demand is there going to be for that? They're nice trucks. They're beautiful. I looked at them. I can't afford it. But I'm stunned. I mean, 4x4. General Ford's the same thing. That's why you see, wow, get $10,000 off. How much is the price of the truck? Oh, 60 grand. 55 grand. I mean, a stripped truck these days, a stripped truck. I was getting my car worked on at the dealership, and I walked across the street to look at their fleet sales. A stripped truck with crank windows, $39,000. So look at car sales. I mean, that is a scary chart. I mean, this is 16 million some odd units. Hold on, right? A little above, almost 17 million units, and are expected. The red line is what they expect it to go down to, below 8 million units. I'm sorry, 16 million units, 8 million new cars units. I mean, I'm and this while we have, anyway, I'm finishing my thought. I want things to open up. I'm hopeful. I'm not fearful, but I want to know what's coming. And there's going to be, one thing's for sure, there's going to be massive reduction in demand for everything. Gasoline, maybe everything but food. Gasoline, cars, clothes, shoes, tools. There's going to be a massive deduction in demand for many different products across the country. Here's the Fed balance sheet. I just had to put this out. It's 6.66 trillion. Here is where the September happened, and the Fed freaked interest rates overnight, went to 10%, and they pumped in 500 trillion, and then they jammed it up here. Right here, it was 3.7 trillion, and they basically doubled it. They doubled it to 6.66 trillion. I just had to print it out. That's not going to be there long, incidentally. That's going to change. But this is massive money creation, and then you got Congress printing up trillions of dollars and putting that out there so we can, for I guess the Fed to buy it, because who's going to buy it? And then you got the Fed in the repo market. That doesn't count that because they think they're going to get their money back with these term repos and these repos and the couple of $1 trillion there. I mean, this is unbelievable. And then on the other side, you have one company after another that's going to file for bankruptcy. Think about the rents. Think about the mortgages, the leases, the commercial loans. Can they make it on 75% of what they used to make? I don't know. Enough of them going to go out of business that the ones left will thrive? I don't know. And all the money printing, what does it lead to? It leads to, this is from the Fed. So I just want to show you this. This is Fred. This is from the Fed. And if you look here at this chart, I mean, you have, the blue line is money stock, basically the money printing. And then the red line is gold. And even with a manipulated market, take a look. You see the phenomenon happening when the money printing is going up. And, there's some dips where they crush it. But, you see it up here. And you get the whole, basically they're kind of going up the same. It's around 1680 right here, okay? And this is the precious metals play that they, nobody ever wants to talk about. Is it sexy? No. Is it leveraged up 8, 9, 10 times to really make some money? No. Do they manipulate it? Yes. Can they do that forever? No. And Egon von Greyer's wrote a great article. He's a guest on this show, kind of a regular guest, smart guy. Was in banking for 20 years and realized all this stuff was going on. He was the guy, And I've asked him a couple of things that just stuck with me. And, I said, what do your guys say about, gold being at 1050? It's okay. This is a few years ago. We don't care. We don't care whether it was 1045, that was its low back in 15, or it's high in 1900 or so, around 2011. We know how this ends. We don't care. We know how this ends. And what are you seeing? You're seeing massive inflation. Could you ever imagine if I told you a year ago the Fed's going to take their balance sheet from 3.7 and double it? You go, oh, come on. And they did. And they're not done. At some point, the money creation is going to fill up the hole, and not right away, because the dollar's going to stay strong. Dollar's strong right now. But there's no end to this in sight of how much stuff they're going to print out. And boy, if we get into a war with, things are dusting up in Iran, we're going into the South China Sea with China. Of course, they're not really that physically strong either, although they do supposedly have 20,000 tons of gold. That might be a weapon they roll out, a financial weapon, and say, here, we'll show you our gold, you show us yours. I don't know. But things are, there's big things brewing on the war front, on the financial front. I mean, China's never going to be the same. China's never going to be the same. That's over. Companies aren't going to be flocking there for cheap labor. They're going to recognize the totalitarian communist regime, oppressive regime, where they have concentration camps. They harvest the organs of dissidents. They persecute Christians and Muslims and put them in concentration camps, the Uyghurs. There's no rights. They track everything you do and everywhere you go through your phone. And whatever happened to Tank Man? But back to gold. So Egon von Greyer's put this out, and it's a chart of what happened to gold, but in inflation adjustments. So here we have the 1980 gold top, and let me make sure I see this right here. Okay, here we have this chart. So this is the 1980 gold top at 850, adjusted for real inflation, and basically that top back in 1980, right here. Okay, this is the gold price adjusted for inflation right here. This was 1980. That spike to 850 was equal to today's money, $18,100. And, if you look at gold throughout history, and they've been kind of crashing it down. And if you look up here, this is back to the 1720s and all the way out. Gold has kind of just dunced along down in here, up and down, and then bam, and then they crush it down. And here we are right here where it's up. This is like 2011 where it was, it equals about $400 an ounce in today's money, right? Right over here, it's 400, 600, 800, 8,000. I'm sorry. It's just below 2,000. 2,000, these are thousands. And so here it was then. At 1900, it was really worth, almost $4,000. And here it is now at 1680. And if you look at where it could go, it's going to go up way higher. I just thought that was interesting. The $850 an ounce spike equals about $18,000. And a lot of people are saying that at some point we're going to get a reset of, all the debt. And a reset of the currency, because our debt is our currency is debt. And I'm just warning you about that. Don't be too overly enthusiastic about the reopening. Yes, I want things to reopen. Yes, it'll be better that things are open. Yes, people will start making money. But all the jobs, I don't think are coming back. All the demand, I don't think is coming back. And I just want you to prepare yourself and be ready for it. And I was talking to one, I went to one of the sporting goods. I had to buy some buckets. I had to buy one of the sporting goods stores. It's funny, Dick's is shut down, but Academy, who sells guns, they're open. Dick's, what a dummy. I don't know if they'll open up either. Dick's, they stopped selling guns because, social justice and they're woke. But anyway, the long and short of it, this girl said, some of my friends are getting unemployment and, I kind of, they're not having to do anything. I said, my dear, you got a job here at Academy at a essential store. You hang on to this job. You do everything you can to protect that job because this unemployment and this extra, stimulus stuff is going to end. And when it ends, these people are going to be scrambling for a job and there aren't going to be that many of them. And she just went, oh, she was young lady, young woman. And so anyway, but listen, that's what I think. So I'll just close out with, I appreciate all your comments and all your donations. That helps us out. But the site's free, and if you can't donate in this time, don't worry about it. Okay, you enjoy USA Watchdog guilt free. But I do thank the people that do give a donation. Thank you very much. And the line that'll get me fired at network television: fear not. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all spiritually. Fear not. God the Father, His Son Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit are all firmly in control. And don't forget it. Thank you very much for supporting USAWatchdog.com.